Welcome back to CityLine. With me, I have two powerhouse individuals that run some of the best organizations when it comes to taking care of and preventing domestic violence and sexual assault trafficking. Please join me in welcoming Carlin Sampson. You are a new executive director at Rebuilding Hope Sexual Assault Center for Pierce County. Welcome, Carlin, to CityLine.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
Great to have you here. And this very familiar face, Miss Nadia Van Adders. You are the Victims Services Supervisor for our wonderful Crystal Judson Family Justice Center. Welcome back, Nadia.
Thank you for having me back.
It's great to have you. I'm really bummed that we can't compare shoes right now, but we're just going to put that in the hopper for when we can be together in the studio again. How's that?
I'll take you up on that.
All right. So I'm going to be asking just a series of questions of both of you because I really want to explore this partnership and how you are covering the needs in Pierce County. So we'll have Nadia answer first, and then we'll have Carlin come around the backside and finish it off. So how are both organizations providing care right now, Nadia?
So we've really had to pivot to remote care and making sure that we're ensuring a high level of services, even though our team is working remotely. So we are still have access to our helpline, where we're talking through options and resources with our callers. We're ensuring that we still have access to our ongoing voices and art group. We're still partnering with our community partners, doing warm handoffs and referrals. And we're working with Superior Court to make sure that we can provide support with protection orders and remotely file for clients while they're working with an advocate.
Very well said. So Carlin, let's talk about your organization and how you're providing care right now.
Absolutely. We have still continued to also provide 24/7 victim advocacy over the phone to include crisis intervention, information referral, general, medical, and legal advocacy. We've added more options for people in crisis to email a confidential advocate directly or to utilize a confidential online chat portal from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. All of our counseling services to survivors and their loved ones are available via telehealth, and that's demonstrated a lot of great success, especially with our teen clients. Our sex trafficking and exploitation program continues to receive and respond to referrals from across the community and county and has been able to successfully make field responses on a case-by-case basis, which is a big deal. Our prevention and community education work has transitioned entirely to an online model, and that has also proven successful despite all of the obstacles.
Boy, you guys, both of you have been very, very busy. So can you tell us more about how you partner? And Nadia, go ahead and start us off.
So there's a deep interconnection between violence that folks experience. So oftentimes we're working with someone who may be a survivor of another form of violence. And so those partnerships are really important. The partnerships are also really important because we have folks on our teams that have worked in both realms. And so this idea of having a strong, robust network of professionals that are supporting each other so we can support clients is huge. But we do a lot of collaborations around training for our different teams, but also joint training. But it really enables us to provide support for survivors in a very different way when we can do these warm handoffs.
That's fabulous. I love how you call it a warm handoff too. It's so gentle and it's so protective, and I love that language. Carlin, let's talk about the reason why your organization partners.
So we have the same philosophy as the Family Justice Center and many other organizations that we've worked with historically. It's oftentimes been an informal partnership, but recent years have shown the intersecting needs expressed by our clients and has increased that visibility to us as providers to show that we have to work more collaboratively together. As Nadia said, the Family Justice Center and Rebuilding Hope, we've historically collaborated to train each other's teams to know how to identify and respond to domestic violence and sexual violence effectively and as a working group. We work to continuously ensure for those clients that we're facilitating, like she said, those authentic, warm referrals. We also consult each other pretty regularly, especially now in this COVID context, to figure out how do we learn about new trends that we're seeing, or how do we develop new best methods of service delivery. And most recently, our partnership with the Family Justice Center has grown to include that shared prioritization in identifying and responding to commercial sexual exploitation and the trafficking of youths and adults. This has increased both of our teams' abilities to better serve clients with complex trauma histories, while also increasing survivors' resources as they navigate their own self-determined options for safety and healing and stabilization.
Beautiful answers from both of you, and you really almost self-answered my next question of why are these partnerships so important? And I don't think we even need to answer it unless there's something that the two of you did not mention right now.
Well, I guess I think, and this really mirrors what Carlin was just saying, but no one agency can do it all, right? And so when we partner, we have healthier and safer communities. So this idea, if someone reaches out to either one of our agencies and it's not the right fit, we're connecting them in because we don't want them to fall through the cracks, and we want them to feel supported and heard.
And I would just add, when we collaborate and partner, we are able to model for our clients their own ability to expand and leverage their own resource network, so that they don't put all their service needs into one proverbial basket. And that just lessens the likelihood that they're going to experience those service failures from the greater community.
It's very empowering when you say, if not this, then that might work. And especially for the people you serve who are desperate for solutions. Let's talk about, and you mentioned this, Carlin, what are some of the challenges for both of your organizations that you are facing during COVID? How are you doing this? Nadia, go ahead, my dear.
So, I mean, this is really the first time we're navigating this for most folks, right? We've not had to navigate a pandemic before. So it's a bit of a steep learning curve. I think one of the things that's really coming to light is making sure agencies have technology so that we can continue to provide services remotely, but also the lack of access for safe technology for clients. You know, how do you connect into services if you can't access that? And so it's making us be very dynamic and creative. And as challenging as it's been, I think we're going to step out of this with a very different way of how to serve the community.
And Carlin, what would you add to that?
I would add to that an absolute echo about the technology and the inequities that it further provides to not only nonprofits and already limited resource agencies doing critical work in the community, but to clients themselves. There's also a multidimensional level of crisis that COVID has presented that has many of our clients forced to navigate extreme economic challenges that dovetails into their housing situation, their health care, their ability to maintain employment with a livable wage, childcare. I mean, the list goes on. So as a survivor, when you're struggling to keep that kind of house of cards from collapsing, you don't have the capacity to focus on healing from trauma because you're experiencing other competing forms of trauma. So for those who are at greater risk also of experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, exploitation, children, youth, individuals who are differently abled, Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, or LGBTQ youth. Again, the list goes on. What we've experienced with the stay-at-home orders and general public restrictions out of concern for the virus, it's creating an extension of a silencing and limitation in many ways for individuals who are wanting to seek help if they're in crisis or even to find a sense of safety. We're concerned we're going to experience a surge in disclosures as communities reopen in different ways, and we anticipate more survivors in need of significant services because of how responses to the pandemic have further complicated their own experiences and victimization, as well as general survivorhood.
Absolutely. And you said something that really ties me into the next question for both of you. You talked about the silence. So when we think about that, what have been some of the greatest impacts on those you serve due to COVID? Is it the silence, Nadia?
Yeah, it really is. And I love doing presentations and interviews with Carlin because I'm mirroring what she's already saying. But just like she said, the inequity that already existed is really just magnified. And the impact that it's having on communities is huge. And so this idea of being at home with your partner or someone who's abusive when you're supposed to be staying home, or you may not be able to be at work, or when services are limited, how do you access help? Right? So this idea of everybody is just kind of in their little cone of silence still is huge. And it's making people even more financially reliant on their abusive partner. But it's having huge impacts on how they can connect into any services in general, right? The long-term housing, how do you file court orders? How do you file family law? How do you connect into these services?
Yeah. And Carlin, what would you add to that?
I would add about the social isolation and how it compounds the psychological and emotional health for survivors who are already facing enormous struggles while they process their traumas, navigate, trying to figure out what their healing journey is going to be. That social isolation is just compounding that. As we've talked about, difficulty accessing basic needs, so financial resources, food, clothing, shelter, you name it. And an example of how that lack of access has impacted what we're seeing from the sexual assault community, for example, forensic exams have dropped significantly since COVID onset. We don't know if that's because there are actually fewer sexual assaults happening as a result of physical distancing, or are survivors afraid to seek exams and ultimately then report because they don't want to increase their risk of exposure to the virus. The clients we serve in our trafficking program, the economic impacts can drive more and more at-risk individuals to resort to survival sex just to get by. And there's really potentially a converse increase then in the power that buyers can wield in that equation to negotiate for lower costs when they are purchasing sex from children and adults. So there's a lot of just different nuanced ways that COVID is impacting and will continue to impact the communities that we serve. So I think Nadia and I have spoken pretty well to just some of what we're seeing.
And Carlin, it's such a lovely addition to have your agency's point of view when it comes to sex trafficking, because that's something that Nadia and I have touched on briefly, but I know that really is one of your core values to prevent that. And so it's good to learn ways that we can be part of the solution on that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we're working with in this partnership, this enhanced partnership with Family Justice Center and lots of other organizations as well. We are working to strategically increase the visibility in the community about what is increasing risk factors about commercial sexual exploitation and sex trafficking here in Pierce County, and what are we collectively doing to increase then those protective factors to start eliminating this type of crime.
Absolutely. It's a phrase that we used back in the 1980s, which was silence equals death. And that talked about the AIDS and HIV crisis. But in many ways, that applies to this right now as well. Nadia, when you were on with me last time, you gave me an example, and I have not forgot about this, of when somebody is with their abuser and they are sheltering in place, and everything is being controlled, their phone, their computer, who they talk to. You found a way, and your organization did, to reach out to them when they go to the grocery store. Would you tell our viewers what that is?
Yeah, so we collaborated with a variety of different agencies, including Rebuilding Hope, because grocery stores was one of the few places that people could go to. So we had folks reaching out to grocery stores, to gas stations and convenience stores. And we put together a flyer that really just let people know there are still services available, that listed out domestic violence and sexual assault services in the community, with the idea that if someone could see that and know that there were still places that they could call and talk to somebody. And I feel like we did see an uptick in calls after that with our agencies. But it was just really important to let people know that even though offices weren't physically open, there's still support there.
Absolutely. Nadia, I want to ask you this question, and then Karin, I have one for you before we close. Nadia, if somebody is watching this who is a survivor, what do you want them to know?
First of all, you're not alone, and you deserve to be safe. And even though the landscape is looking different currently, there are still resources available. There are still people to talk to. And we want to make sure we're connecting folks into what they need to stay safe. But you are not alone.
I love that. And then, Carlin, what would you tell family or friends who know someone experiencing domestic violence or sexual assault?
Such an important question. Thank you for asking. I would say, please do your best to not assume that you know what's best for that loved one. They need time, they need space to really process their experiences and to learn what options they have to navigate without pressure or undue influence. Provide unconditional belief and support, planting questioning or questions that can be seeds of doubt. Those are the things that prevent people from coming forward and seeking formal services or reporting altogether. And then finally, seek support for yourself. Reach out and learn from us or learn from the Family Justice Center how you can support your loved one and process how their experience has impacted you as well. Sexual violence, domestic violence, it has a ripple effect on the entire community. And there's no weakness in reaching out for that support. Our advocates, case managers, and therapists work equally and confidentially with the loved ones all the time. Parents, siblings, partners, spouses, roommates, coworkers, it goes on, of the survivors. And we are here for you too. Your unwavering belief and support of your loved one will not go unnoticed. And that's what they need the most.
Oh, beautifully said. So, last question for the dynamic duo here. How can people support your organization, Nadia?
So right now, people's needs are really variable. And so gift cards are huge because it allows survivors to prioritize what they need and get what they need most. And so if folks can donate gift cards, we can make sure to distribute those to clients, but we're also doing regular pickup donations and pickups for clients of diapers and wipes and toiletries and food. So items like that are really huge and are really beneficial, especially when finances are so strapped.
Yes. Carlin, what does your organization need?
I would say to determine the need, connect with us. Really connect with us. If you're not familiar with our agency, we've been around for almost 50 years, and it's very telling sometimes when people say we never knew you were here. So reach out. Our website is readily available. We try to connect with our community through social media, and it's very simple to find ways to connect with me directly or other members of our team. If you have the means to donate, there are ways to donate directly on our website. But if you want to learn from us what those needs are so you can shape that gift, talk with us. We want to educate and inform our public. And similar to what Nadia mentioned, especially in the gift card realm, for our case managers and our advocates, having gift cards to a variety of vendors that can meet a variety, of basic item needs. Those can go directly into the hands of our clients when they're at just critical points of meeting essential needs items. So there's lots of ways to connect with us, our 24/7 hotline. And again, through our website, reach out to me directly. We're here to hear from the community and to learn from the community.
The two of you are so amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of your critical schedule of saving people's lives to be here. And I want you back into my house in 90 days. Is that a deal?
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Thanks for having us.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up another great segment of CityLine. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be in your home and for you to be in my home as well. We've given you some great things to think about during this last hour, so please remember to connect with people. This is called the Great Reset for a reason. Yes, we need to socially distance. That is true. Wear your mask, wash your hands, but reach out to those that you love, because the only way we're going to get through this is together. And when you do that, I'll be waiting for you right here on CityLine. Take care.
Come on is my home, place I call my own. Come on is my home, yeah, to come on as my home. Well, you're from the east end, how you're from Green Bay, how you're from Atlanta, but to come is where you'll stay. Well, you're from the east end. Stay, yeah. Come on, that's my home. From the pines to the dawn. Come is my home, place I call